I used to meet with the top leaders of the 5 largest national house church networks in China. And on this one particular day when we were meeting, the brother who was facilitating the meeting that day got a phone call. So he answered his phone, talked for a minute, and then he said, "We won't be able to meet today because I have to leave right away." Now, I was getting ready to go on an extended trip to the United States, and I wasn't going to be able to meet with these folks for over a year. And so in my mind, this was a particularly important meeting. So I said, "Can't you just stay for at least a couple of hours so we can touch on the most urgent issues?" And he said, "No, I have to leave. I have to go right away." And I said, "What happened?" And he said, 2 of our evangelists up in the Northeast have just been killed, and I need to go see if God wants to raise them from the dead. And I said, "Oh." I didn't really know how to respond because it sort of caught me by surprise. And I immediately began to think to myself, what would my response be if 2 of our organization's people had just been killed up in the Northeast? Well, my first action would be to call some other workers up in that region to have them go take care of the bodies and go comfort the families, see if there's anything that could be done for them. And then I would call our headquarters back in the United States, have them take care of notifying their relatives in the US, and start making plans for deflecting any possible media coverage, things like that. That would have been my first response. Why? I believe God can raise the dead, and in fact, I know multiple people who themselves or their spouses or their children have been raised from the dead. So why would my response be so different from this brother's? Well, I can rationalize all I want to, but the fact of the matter is, it's because I had a lesser degree of faith. You see, I believe God can raise the dead, but this guy expected God to raise the dead. That leads to a completely different response to the situation. If you have this kind of expectant faith, you will react to situations in a different manner than other people. You have different expectations. You take different risks. You see things differently. And that leads to a completely different life, to completely different decisions. You see, I had the kind of faith like the soldiers who stood under the pomegranate tree with King Saul, who believed God could deliver them. This brother was like Jonathan, who recognized God is not limited to save, whether by many or by few, and set out with his armor bearer to attack this overwhelming force of Philistines. That kind of expectant faith is qualitatively different. God can use you, whatever level of faith you have. He's not limited by that, but he desires for us to have Jonathan's kind of faith, this brother's kind of faith, an expectant faith that's willing to risk anything, to sacrifice anything, and a faith that sees God's power, that trusts God's character. And if we have anything less, we must not be satisfied with it. We need to continually aspire to Jonathan's kind of faith, to this brother's kind of faith, because that is the kind of disciple God delights to multiply.